On. Testing, testing. All right. I think it's working. Let me know if it's not. I think it's a bit soft. Let me just turn up the gain a little bit here on my mic. All right, hope that's better. All right, if you're out there, let me know if you can hear me. Otherwise, I'm going to carry on. Welcome, everybody, to CanHammer TV on this October 28th, 3 days before Halloween. And I'm going dressed up as a custodian, like a janitor in a school, to go with my daughter's toilet costume. No joke, she's going as a toilet. It is a joke, I'm not going as a custodian. And that was a pun on custodies, in case you hadn't figured it out. Welcome. And tonight we're going to carry on with Custodes Tactica, Part 6. We had a break last week to make way for 3 nights of streaming. And so tonight we'll carry on with Part 6, which is very topical because I've had a lot to do with my list over the last few days and talking about tanks. So that is what we're going to talk about tonight, tanks. And we're going to go over to have some tabletop demo again, because people seem to enjoy that from last time, and I think it's another good topic on which to demonstrate on the tabletop. E.R. Welcome. Is that Marine behind you on the poster? Alpha Legion. I don't know. This is like the cover poster for the 8th edition, when 8th edition was being advertised for the starter box. That's what that is. At the top there, which you can't see, it's off the screen, that's the Age of Sigmar one. This is a table mat that they used for the side tables at Adepticon. That's all that is. This is art by John Scrivens. This is Samuel L. Jackson on a Seraphon floating thing. And this is a amazing art print of Custodes on metal, courtesy of the Dream Team guys. Welcome very much, guys. Thanks for joining me. We'll be going over a few things tonight before we get on to Tactica, and but then we'll get straight onto it. At the end of the show, we will be giving away the Raven Guard supplement and everybody's favorite, the Iron Hand supplement. Both shrink wrapped, so we will be giving these away at the end of the show. So stay tuned if you want to win these. And then soon we're going to have for giveaway the Fists and Salamanders supplements as well. So stay tuned. We'll have those to give away soon. Not much happening right now in terms of news. Just the Osiark Bone Reapers are all coming out now, which are very cool. I don't think I'm going to get them. I've just started hobbying my Sylvaneth army, so I don't think I'm going to get those Bone Reaper guys. Those all look pretty cool, but I got kind of tired of painting that kind of bone and armor look after painting Arcan, so I'm like, I don't think I could do a whole army of that. But they do look cool and they seem pretty good. They also leaked some cherub pictures today from the New Sisters army, of course, coming out in November, so I'm sure people are very excited about that. And we'll see what the power level of that book is. Whether people's theory that everything coming out is this new, like, 8.5 edition or 9th edition. We'll see if the Sisters are as strong as the Marines were. Speaking about strength, so Marines did fairly well at SoCal, but they did not win. So now we'll see what happens to all those top players who switched from their armies to play Iron Hands, and now will they go back or will they stick? They'll probably stick. Marines are still very strong. They just didn't win SoCal. Big deal. Doesn't matter when the winner is Tau and then the next 10 are all Marines. It doesn't really matter, right? So Marines doing pretty well. And so no surprise to anybody. So you wonder whether the Sisters will be similarly strong or not. It was won ER by Brian Pullen, who plays Tau, Interestingly enough, he has on his YouTube channel, which is called Tabletop Titans, I believe, he has a short series of videos on individual Custodes units for whatever reason, but he's pretty much a Tau player, and he's been doing pretty well with Tau. Yeah. Shadizo, welcome. What is up and how are you? There is exciting news coming soon. I can't tell you what it is right now, but last week I posted pictures of some artwork being done of me in a Custodes outfit, being done by John Scrivens, in that style of art that he does. And so there might be something happening soon somewhere between myself and Honest Wargamer. Stay tuned. But something we've been working on since they came over for CCBB. So pretty exciting. We'll see how that goes over the next few weeks, I think. Otherwise, not much news. Just a quick update on CanHammer Team Tournament, February 8th, 9th, up here in Ottawa. 2-day, 5-round, ETC style, 5-man team tournament, of course. One of our 2 big events of the year, that and Capital City Bloodbath. We are currently at 24 teams, so that's 120 people, and we have space to expand. We currently have 2 teams on the wait list, and so we're waiting for 1 more, and then we can let 2 teams in. So we don't have a ringer team. See you later, ER. We don't have a ringer team, so we can't really have like a random 1 team in. So we're letting 2 teams in at a time when we have a second one. I have put out a post if single players out there who want to join up on a team to form a ringer team or want to be last minute subs, because usually people drop from teams, then do let us know. We'll put you on a list so that we can see if we can get that going. There's still a few months to go, yeah. Last week I posted up on the captain's forum, so ask your captain if you haven't heard about it, but also on the event website, the draft mission pack for this year's ETC that Skyry seems to have had a big hand in helping to make. The biggest change being, other than little tweaks to missions here and there, that your Maelstrom deck is now, there's like deck building. You can put 18 cards in there, there's certain requirements, and then you have a hand of cards that you play out every turn depending on the mission, so that you can play the ones that you can score. So pretty cool little way of changing the Maelstrom to be less random, yet still use the cards, and a little bit of deck building element, which they started with last year where you could take 6 out. So pretty interesting. I really kind of like that. We'll see how it goes, and maybe starting from about mid-November, the streams might switch over to doing some ETC games so that people around here locally can practice for CanHammer Team. So it'd be really cool to try that out. But that's a pretty interesting change that the ETC has made. And ETC, a lot of people prefer ETC over ITC. I don't know if I prefer one over the other. I think they're just different. But it's definitely an interesting change to how they do things. Speaking of ETC, so do check out the latest episode of the Stud or Scrub podcast that's run by Dustin and Jesse. Great guys, and they run a great podcast up to episode 51, and they had Chris on last week to talk about CanHammer Team, but also to talk about Team ETC. And congratulations to Dustin. He is already a stud. He's the first member confirmed for the ETC Team Canada for next year, so he's going to have a hand in helping pick everybody else. So congratulations, and that's 3 people now on Team ETC Canada for next year, so that's pretty exciting. What we will be talking about tonight for Custodes Tactica is we're going to be going over tanks, and before we start that, I'm just going to summarize some of the things I've been doing over the last few days with regards to my lists for the people watching. This has all been discussed on the Custodes Discord channel, so if you're a Custodes player and you want to join our Discord, please do. It's hosted on CanHammer Discord. It's completely free. We talk about tactics, lists, unit reviews, tournament results, everything on there related to Custodes. There's hobby, there's people showing their pictures and paint jobs. It's a all-inclusive Custodes destination. So do hit me up for the link to that, and and you can join, and it's free and everything. So that's cool. So basically, I have changed my list. I was thinking of how I can change. So I have two lists basically. I have my normal list. I'm going to refer to it as my normal list, which is basically my no troop Custodes list that I've been playing so much of recently. And then I have my new foot list that I've been trying to craft for the guys on the Custodes group to try and play some lists with a different, play some games with a different list. So we'll talk about the foot list. After my loss last week to Necrons, I changed my foot list because I'm not convinced that running a battalion is good still. That game did not convince me of that. And so I dropped the battalion and went full patrol. I just have one 5-man unit of Sagittarium now because they're going to be my backfield. And then I've now got only 5 Aquilon instead of 6 because I don't like having 6. It's too many. And I have 6 Venatari still, and I've added a unit of, I think, 7 or 8 Wardens. So now I can have the Venatari on the table as my kind of biker unit, biker substitute unit, and I can drop in Aquilon and Wardens as my 2 hammers, because the Venatari really weren't a hammer. So there can be now the harassment kind of early game wrapping role that the bikers play in my other list, and they can rely on my Aquilon and my Wardens to be the hammers. So that's my foot list that I will be trying probably a couple of weeks from now. And that's that. So if people have questions on that, let me know. My normal list has now transitioned into, so I was thinking, what is my normal list struggling against now? So I summed it up. So first of all, giving away 4 points, Big Game Hunter. So before Marines, I almost never gave up Big Game Hunter. In fact, it was pretty much a trap to pick Big Game Hunter against me. But now I've been giving up 3 to 4 points of Big Game Hunter every game. So that's not good. I wanted to change that because at the end of the day, we're still a denial list. So, and I think Custodes can only succeed as a low-scoring denial list. So that was one thing I wanted to change. The other thing is I'm struggling to kill stuff at range. Two Caladius or 1 Blaze and 1 normal Caladius were not doing the job. You know, the Blaze would do 8, 9, maybe 10 wounds at the most, with a buffer there. And then the Caladius against vehicles was just not doing well. And so eventually I just stopped shooting at vehicles with it, which probably we'll talk about later is not what you should be shooting at with it anymore. So, and without originally, of course, my list started with 2 Caladius tanks and a Telemon. And so after the nerf, I dropped the Telemon for 2 Palace tanks. And while the Talus tanks are great at zipping around and grabbing the odd point here and there, they did not kill very much, and they gave up easy Big Game Hunter. They may have been a little bit easier for me to get recon, but generally wasn't hard for me to get recon with bikes and Aquilons dropping in and Caladius tanks. So my version 2 now, I call it, is now I've dropped the 2 Palace tanks and I've taken a 3rd Caladius just to give me some stronger backfield holding, screening, as well as shooting. So actually my list now has 1 normal Caladius and 2 Blaze Caladius. So I think 2 Blaze Caladius is going to be able to light up any T8 target now easily, probably without any babysitting. So I might roll the odd 1, but hitting on 2s, re-rolling wounds, wounding everything on 3s. So that's pretty good, and if I need to, I can put the captain back there for re-rolling 1s to hit, so it's auto-hitting, or I could even put Valoris up there for auto-hitting and basically auto-wounding. So that's going to be a nice amount of shooting. And then what I've been finding is that a single Blaze Caladius will take out a T7 vehicle pretty reliably by itself. So that's pretty good, or at least severely disable it. So that's one change. And then I've left the 3rd tank as a normal Caladius because the purpose of that Caladius is not to shoot vehicles at all. So we'll come to that when we for the Tactica. So that's what I've got now, hooking up the back line. And so to make space for that, I had three choices. One is to drop an Aquilon, which puts me at only 4 Aquilon, which is a slightly, that's the minimum size I would consider for Aquilon unit, but a little bit under strength. And then it left me with almost 60 points of nothing to do, other than like Flamers and Misericordias, which really sucks, and that's a frustration with Custodes. So that wasn't ideal. The second one was to drop Valoris, because those tanks already reroll to wound against vehicles, but I find that reroll 1 is great for everybody else in the army. Second of all, he's another source of strength 10 in combat, and then his moment shackle is really flexible. I use it most of the time to get 3 CP back from a homer, which is a great feeling when you get a free homer, but also it allows me to play around with that 1 CP if I need it, and also if you need to, he can heal himself or he can attack twice. So Valoris really has a lot of value for a decent price. I know he's not Iron Father Farios value, but he's pretty good value, especially considering he used to be 250. So I was really loath to drop Valoris, but I didn't want him just standing at the back all the time, doing nothing but giving rerolls to the tanks. That seemed like a waste for 185 points. So, but in my current list, the captain is always the one that goes forward. So what I did was I then replaced the biker captain with an Alaris captain. Now, losing the biker captain was difficult. That captain is so good, he's so fast, he's hitty, he's tougher than the other HQs because he's T6. With a 3-up invuln, he's so good, such good value. And because he's a bike, of course, he can attack flyers and stuff, so he's part of the anti-flyer tech. Grabbing objectives late game, 20-inch advance, recon, so good, right? So good. So it's really hard to drop him, but I had to drop something to make way for that third tank. So I dropped him and turned him into an Alaris captain. So, and with the points I saved, I managed to get an Alaris captain with an axe. And so here, and then I put the Praetorian plate on him. So the only other place to put the relic would be on the Vexilla, and that would be to give him a 3-up invuln. But I had the points to give the Vexilla the Storm Shield with his Misericordia, so he doesn't need 3-up invuln relic, and there's no other relic really for him to take that's worthwhile. So I put a relic on my captain, and I gave him the Praetorian plate. So here's what I'm thinking, depending on mission and matchup, either Valoris can go in Deep Strike and drop in with the other Deep Strikers, and give all those guys support rerolls, okay? And then my Alaris captain starts on the field at the back, buffing tanks with reroll to hit. And then if he needs to, he can teleport up with the Praetorian plates, basically like a infinity distance heroic intervention, basically, that's what it is. And so he can just zoop and help support the attack when the tanks don't need support anymore. Usually by turn 3, turn 4, the tanks don't have that much that they really need rerolls to make sure they don't miss. The first 2 turns where you really have to kill things before they can kill you back. So that's that. Or he can just stay at the back and help anchor the back. Or, depending on matchup, if there's a lot I need to shoot and make sure I kill in the first 2 turns, I do start Valoris at the back to give that reroll wound bubble to the tanks, and the captain comes in to give reroll 1s to hit, like the shield captain used to do in the front line. So that's how I'm going to play it. Giving that Praetorian plate is basically a relic that allows me to redeploy that captain. And then because he's an Alaris, I can also deep strike him. So that gives me a lot of flexibility there. It's going to be pretty hitty with strength 8, and the Vexilla is going to be harder to kill with the 3-up invuln. So actually my characters are going to be pretty good. So hopefully that will balance out the loss of the biker captain a little bit in some circumstances. And so we're going to play that list on Wednesday versus Adam and his AdMech. See how that goes. With the 3 shooty tanks at the back, the forward pressure, and the characters going in between. We'll see. So that's kind of the plan with list version 2B, which you can see down below on the Twitch there. There's options to change it, obviously, but we'll probably play that a few times and see how that works against a variety of people. So that's it. If people have questions on that, ask me away. Also, consider joining Custodes Discord. We're talking about stuff like that all the time. And we're going to carry on with Tactica Part 6 right now. So Tactica Part 6 is tanks. So last time we talked about fast attack, but I didn't talk about the palace tanks because we're going to talk about them today. And of course we're going to talk about the Cladius. First of all, let's talk about the tanks that I don't really use, and go over maybe why we don't use them. So first of all the tanks are Forge World. The Codex did not give us any tanks except for the Land Raider, which you shouldn't use. So these are Forge World tanks, and so if you're playing ETC, for example, they still don't allow Forge World, so you're kind of screwed. But assuming that you're playing in a format that allows Forge World, then you can have access to these tanks. The other thing to note is that there's two kinds of Cladius tanks, and they are bought completely separately. You cannot buy the turrets by themselves. They are different tanks. One is called the Cladius tank, and the other is called the Annihilator. So they're completely different. So if you want to switch turrets, you're going to have to source the turrets from somewhere else, or convert your own turrets or something, which is a real pain in the ass. But anyway. And initially, when the Cladius was super hyper good before it got nerfed, there was really only one way to run them, which was with the accelerators. But now I think there's actually a lot of play in the Blaze, especially with how the vehicle meta has really come on in the last few months, before Marines and with Marines, especially with Marines. So definitely the Blaze has got play, and that's why you see in my list that there's 2 Blaze Caladiuses. But we'll talk about that. Okay, first thing we're going to talk about is the Grav Carrier, the Cronus Grav Carrier. I don't have one. I don't think I'm ever going to buy one. I don't think we need transports, and so that in itself already makes it kind of pointless to have one. Its weapons aren't as good as the Cladius, and so it's basically not there. It basically has the same gun as the Palace tank, so if you just want something for shooting, then just take a Palace tank and probably end up taking 2 Palace tanks for the same cost, I believe. See, Cronus Grav Carrier is 200 exactly. So for the same price as 1 transport with the same gun, you can have 2 Palace tanks and do twice the amount of shooting, twice the amount of coverage, and yeah. The only thing going for the Cronus, of course, is that it's harder to kill. It's T8 with 18 wounds, but it's still just 3+ with a 5-up invuln, so that will melt. So yeah, not good. So don't go for the Cronus Grav Carrier. You don't need transports, and just take 2 Palace tanks anyway if you have nothing to spend 200 points on. Okay, next is the Orion. So the Orion got hit a little bit in the Forge World final rules. Mostly the hit was that the most important hit was that it went from a Lord of War to a flyer. What that means, of course, is that it can't hold objectives anymore for you. And in an army that is so elite, and even more elite by running a 400-point model, it's got to help you a little bit. And so I think that put the nail in the coffin for the Orion. It shoots a lot, yes. It's probably fairly hard to kill with -2 to hit at the minimum, but these days with full rerolls, man, a Marine army will put that down. We'll put that down first turn, and then you're just crying. You just lost like a quarter of your army almost, and if you had stuff in there, something's probably going to die, and that's painful. Like, yeah, so I just don't think that the Orion really has a place in this current meta, especially as a flyer and not as a Lord of War. It didn't matter that we had to run a separate detachment for it anyway, so yeah, so I just don't think it's going to work out. Otherwise, it was decent, and obviously the triple Orion had its day as a fad list, of Chinese like resin on the table, but I don't think there's much place for the Orion. We won't spend too much time on it. Now the Ares gunship is that new, it's kind of like the Orion, but it's got like a little thing at the back, and it's a gunship basically. That's an interesting model. So this is, of course, again, a flyer and not a Lord of War. It's a little bit cheaper than the Orion, not that much, but it's almost 400 points. And it's the same toughness, so it's -1 to hit, toughness 8, 22 wounds, 3 up, 5 up. And it has quite a bunch of shooting. It has strength 9 shooting, and it also has this magma blaze cannon, which is 72 inches, heavy D3 shots, strength 14, D3 plus 6. So that's pretty good. That's like an average of 8 damage, at least with just one shot, or many more than that if you happen to roll a good D3. Oh, God, I hate D3s. If that was straight 2, that would be so much better. Anyway, strength 14, so you're still just wounding T8 stuff on 3s, but wounding everything else on 2s. And then in the burst mode, it's still strength 9, but with D3 damage, only 3 shots. So, you know, that's pretty good, and it has the blaze cannon, the same blaze cannon that you find on the blaze Caladius, basically, because it has half the shots, but you have 2 of them. So really, you're getting this because you want the magma blaze cannon. Also has a bomb, so I think twice per game. Yeah, so twice per game, if it flies over something, it can drop up to 20 d6 worth of bombs. And you know, it's less if it's a vehicle, monster, or character, whatever. And on a 4-up, it does mortals. So that's pretty good. If you drop it on a horde, you're going to do like 8, 9, 10 mortals. That's pretty good. But you probably don't need that to kill those things. Custodes kills hordes of stuff pretty good. If you go over a unit of 6 aggressors, you're dropping 6 bombs, you're doing 3 mortals on them, you kill 1 guy. You know, it's pretty lackluster. And it definitely doesn't help you kill anything else. So, you know, it's okay. Yeah. So interesting, there was an Ares list, I think, this weekend at one of the tournaments that was pretty interesting. It was like triple Caladius and an Ares. So that's a lot of vehicle shooting. It had triple Palace as well, and then it had like a guard battalion. So that's a pretty interesting list. There was also a Custodes list, which was basically a battalion, but with 3 Thunderfire cannons. That's pretty cool. But so I think it has its place, and if you have one, you know, break it out and play it at time. I'm always not a fan of, in an expensive army, of putting so many more points into one model, especially these days when you got Imperial Fist doing extra damage to vehicles and stuff. So, you know, it is what it is, but I'm not going to buy one because I already had the Orion sitting around. So I might proxy the Orion as an Ares to try it out at some point, but I think it's interesting. I don't think it's super competitive. But if you build a list around it like that guy did, then you could probably go, you know, 3-1-4-1 at a GT with that. Because there's a lot of shooting. It's not a lot of shooting. It's just some super heavy shooting. So you'll take that repulsor out the first turn, you know. You won't kill Ferios though, probably, eh? Apparently. Okay. Let's talk about the 2 tanks that we use a lot. We'll talk first about the Palace Gravitak. So we're going to just go over the stats and things like that for them, and then we'll get them on the tabletop and show you a little bit about how best to use these suckers. Okay, so the Palace Gravitak is the little mini Caladius, basically. And it's a pretty cool model. It's a little thing. It's like smaller than a Rhino. It's pretty nice, not too hard to hide. And what I find with the Caladius is that with the Caladius and the Palace is you can get advantage from the fact that it's shaped like this. You can stick little bits of these 2 corners out, or the back engines, and get line of sight and stay very well hidden like that because of this indentation there. And because everything measures from hull because it's a flying vehicle. So, of course, now generally you're not supposed to put on runes and shit, but you can use that to your advantage, these little bits that stick out. Same with the Caladius tanks. So Caladius is even more pronounced. It has these bits that stick out. So definitely something you can use to your advantage. So I like the Palace tank. It's one of the cheapest models in our book. It's only 100 points with weapon. Has decent shooting. It can help you finish off vehicles because it's strength 7, -4 rerolls against wounds against vehicles, and 3 straight damage. Super nice. It is heavy, but it doesn't care about heavy, which is amazing, and only 2 shots. So that's pretty good. Or it can kill some units for you with 6 shots, 5 -2. 5 -2, 1 damage. So it's pretty good. The best thing about this tank, though, is that it's 16-inch movement, which is amazing, and has a 5-up invuln. so it can take some damage even though it's only T6 8 wounds, so it's not going to last forever, but the 5-up invuln can help it shrug off some big hits. And of course it has the grav rule where it's -2 to charge, so really nice screener. So that's this guy. I would, and at 100 points, help you fill out fast attacks slots, and also really good for things like recon, but we're going to talk about that when we go to the tabletop. The biggest downside, of course, is these guys are fairly easy to kill. You know, Marines, freaking intercessors with chain swords in combat will kill these guys now fairly easily. They can die from bolter fire. So, you know, they're fairly easy to kill, and of course, if you're running 2 or 3 of these, like, you're probably going to give a big game. So, they do have downside, but for 100 points, they're pretty good. Okay, next we'll talk about the Custodes. And so I will refer to them as normal Custodes with the accelerators and Blaze Custodes with the Blaze Cannon. So, that's basically the same tank, just with different gun. So the Custodes tank is the older brother of the Palace. It only moves 14 inches, which is really nice. I think it's one of the fastest tanks out there. Most tanks are moving like 12 inches, things like that. It is T7 and does have 3-up, 5-up invulns. So it is not hard to kill, but with 14 wounds, it is relatively sturdy. It annoys me that Marines have 4-up invulns and we only have 5-up invulns, but anyway, you can't have everything. So it's 3-up, 5-up, 14 wounds, T7. So it's fairly hard to kill, but dedicated anti-tank fire these days will kill it. The good thing is, because it starts at 2-up ballistic skill, it doesn't actually degrade that much. The worst it gets is 4-up, which is still pretty good. Sorry, just got to restart the chat here. It just crashed for some reason. There we go. Snoop DeVille, welcome. I didn't see you sign on because the chat kind of crashed out, but I got it open now. So it is fairly hard to kill, but dedicated fire will take it down. But people have to put some effort to kill it, and degrading it doesn't do that much to its output unless you then start adding on other modifiers. So keep that in mind. You don't want to just throw them away. But as you see when we go to the tabletop, the best way to play these guys is aggressively. Now, the best thing about them is their shooting. They have 60-inch shooting with the accelerator and still 48 with the Blaze, which is better than our poor Telemon, which got nerfed to 36 inches. So as you'll see when you look at the Blaze Cannon, if you're running a Custodes with the Blaze Cannon, it's probably better than the Telemon now, because it's basically with 14-inch move, it's like a 62-inch threat range, whereas the Telemon is nowhere close to that. So the Twin Accelerator, of course, got nerfed. It used to be Strength 8 -3 D3. Now it's Strength 7 -3, but Straight 2. So the Straight 2 is super nice. Super nice. But the Strength 7 is really, it's a big impact. Not really on how good the gun is. It just changes what you shoot at. Okay, so you don't shoot Custodes tanks, normal Custodes anymore at T8. No, just don't do it. It's a waste of time. You might get through kind of 4 wounds, maybe 6 if you're lucky, but generally not a good idea to shoot the accelerator at T8. It's just not that good at that anymore. You need other things in your army to do that now. Aquilon, Blaze Custodes. Shooting at Strength 7 is okay. You're probably going to do maybe 8 to 10 wounds if you're lucky. You might one-shot a Rhino with it if you're lucky. That's still not great, but it is doable in a pinch. And that, combined with a Palace tank with some can probably take down a T7 vehicle fairly easily. It's not ideal, but it can be done. Really, what you should be shooting Custodes is everything else. You should shoot it at Marine units, because straight 2 damage goes through Primaris Marines. 8 shots, auto hitting, wounding on 3s, 6-up save, and 2 damage. So it's really good at digging out eliminators who are on like a 0-up save. You know, infiltrators, those kind of guys. It's really good at killing those things, especially with the Valorous reroll around. So it's really good at that. That's what you should be shooting. Once you've done all that, it kills Chaff hardcore. It'll kill 8 guardsmen, 8 AdMech Rangers, 8 Eldar Rangers. It will kill 7 to 8 of any of the little chaff, and will kill 4, 5, 6 of the harder to kill chaff like Marines and shit like that. So it's really good at that. It's great for killing Terminators because of the -3/2 wounds. Really good for killing Terminators. So it is really good at killing all those other things. So you try, and that's why I've still got one in my list, 2 blaze and 1 normal, for the normal to shoot the other stuff, because that's the stuff that's going to get you kill more, going to get you butchers. That's what that normal Custodes is for now. And then on top of that, it has this strength 6 -2 1 damage gun at the bottom. Also great for killing 5-man units of guardsmen and Tyranids and all those sorts of things. Great little guns. So, of course, his machine spirit is so amazing, so you can just fly and move 14 inches and shoot, no problem. That's where the Telemon really sucks out compared to these tanks. And then, of course, it's -2 to charge, like the little tank, which is great. You can screen with these guys. They're fairly sturdy. They can never get wrapped, and then they can just shoot when they leave combat. So, really good tanks. Still very much worth it at 220 points. Very worth it. Shadizo, the Forge World worth the cost? Yes, it is, because we don't really have any other options. Of course, you can get it for cheaper. So I think these guys are like 130 or something like that, Canadian, which is not too bad. Like a repulsor is like 95 or like $100 or something. So it's not too bad. They're amazing models, beautiful sculpts, and they look really cool on the tabletop. So I think they're worth it. But you're asking the wrong person. I love Forge World. In terms of in-game, are they worth the money? Well, that's hard to put a money cost on in-game performance, but certainly they're one of our best units still after the nerf. GW was surprisingly light-handed with the nerf because they could have done a lot more. So yes, still very much our tank of choice, and if you're going to go vehicle, I think you have to have 2 to 3 Custodes tanks. So the other gun is the Blaze. So before the Castellan got nerfed, you couldn't run these because these would just die to Castellans, and there wasn't much vehicles to shoot with them, and so it didn't really have much in the meta. And then after the Castellan died, there were so many vehicles and not enough vehicles to kill these with, that these became pretty unkillable and would easily kill vehicles at strength 8. So that's when everybody started getting their Custodes tanks, and there was no reason to get strength 9 because the strength 8 would kill everything pretty well. So now, with so many more vehicles, lots of hard-to-kill vehicles, repulsors and shit, and there's still lots of knights around, and Chaos Knights are having a thing right now, you need this. I think the Strength 9 is good. Now, if the Telemon could still give that to us, that Telemon would be straight in my list if it was still the same 72 inches, 4 shots at Strength 9. Unfortunately, the Telemon is no longer with us. RIP. But a couple of Custodes Blaze Cannons will carry the same role. That's 4 shots in total, strength 9, auto hitting, rerolling wounds against vehicles, and -4, and actually much better damage. So not 3 damage, it's 3 plus D3 each. So potentially, if you get lucky, 12 damage with 1 tank, 24 with 2. That's super lucky, obviously. My luck with D3 is not like that, but it has the potential. So that's pretty good. And of course, these things don't suffer the penalty for moving like the Telemon did, and they're on 14-inch unwrappable flying tank platforms. Now, they're not individually as hard to kill as the Telemon, but nobody really shot my Telemon anyway. People knew what the real threat was, so that hasn't really changed. So I think running 1 to 2 Blaze Custodes, if you're going to run a bunch of Custodes tanks, is the way to go now with the current meta as it is. So my current list that I'm going to be trying on Wednesday has 2 Blaze Custodes tanks. And yeah, it's been pretty good. So then you can decide who you want to buff them. I'm quite having the reroll ones to hit to buff them so they don't miss. I hate missing. And then to wound, 3s rerolling all wounds on vehicles, pretty good. And you should be shooting these guys at vehicles. Now, if you don't have any vehicles to shoot at, these guys will root out eliminators on 0-up saves. Wounding on auto hitting, wounding on 2s, rerolling 1s with Valoris, no save or a 6-up save, and auto kill them. So these things are good at killing dug in Marines as well. So they do have some functionality there, and of course, that's pretty good. So, so they do have a role, and they may even kill a dreadnought with like half damage and everything on it. It'll be harder to do, but those dreadnoughts are stupid. But definitely for Leviathans and stuff like that, you probably, if you're gonna shoot at it at all, which often you probably don't want to, you need those blaze tanks, because the normal Caladius will do nothing to a dreadnought these days with all the stratagems they have. Nothing. Literally, it's like shooting a heavy bolter at it. So these are the tanks. So we've gone over the stats, why they're good, why they're bad, and now we're going to go over tabletop. All right, so now what I'm going to do is switch over to the overhead cam. Give me a second here. If anybody has questions, please put it in the chat. Where's the overhead? Here we go. All right, I don't know why it's so blurry, but anyway. Okay, so here I've set up some units here just to demonstrate a little bit. So over here we have a tank commander, okay? Very common unit these days, and people play guard. We've got a unit of guardsmen trying to screen this tank here. We've got some guardsmen here trying to hold the middle objective. We've got 3 Alaris Terminators here. We've got a Castellan over there, okay? And on the field, we've got a Palace tank over there. And these guys I was just playing with, they're not in position anywhere, but you know, let's say it's here or something. So, you know, here. So, obviously, the obvious uses for these tanks. Let's discuss the Palace first. So the obvious use for the Palace tank is moving 16, just popping out anywhere it wants to go, shooting guardsmen with 6 shots that will kill them, sentinels, things like that. Okay? Same with the Caladius tank. Really easy, just moves along the back line, 60-inch range or 48 with the blaze, just picking things off from the back line. Pretty easy way to play it. That's and then the other thing, of course, is, you know, using them as a screen. Okay, anything that needs to charge, as long as you place your screen correct, they have to -2 charge it. That can really fuck up some units, and then you don't want to eat a lucky Overwatch from a Caladius tank. It will kill a lot of things. So, how can you maximize your 220 points? How can you play these tanks to their full potential? What you need to do is think like an Eldar player. So the Eldar formed previously to before Marines came out. Of course, the Eldar have everything, right? They've got you know, great flyers. They've got all the rules and stratagems for everything. Amazing psychic powers, some of the best psychic powers in the game, and they've got everything. And what they do have is wave serpents. They have wave serpents, which are basically flying tanks. They shoot okay, but they're not there really for shooting. But they are flying tanks that move very far, are very hard to kill, and can do a lot of things for you. So what if you try and use your Caladius tanks like wave serpents, given the right circumstances, so don't get them killed too easily, but then you will find them to be worth way more than just a gunboat. They are also that, but they can do so much more. So here we have now a setup. We've got Valoris and the Vexilla here in their 6-inch range for these guys in the back of our gun line. Okay, let's say it's like here. So what do we want to do? Okay, so we could just sit back here and shoot stuff. Okay, but we got recon. Okay, so what you can do, move this guy. Now he gets your recon, and he can still shoot stuff. Okay, and you can move your characters up behind it, stay in range for your buffs and stuff, as long as you measure it all out, and then you can still get the buffs and also protect your characters, allowing your characters to advance, assuming there's no snipers. So these tanks are a reason why it's easy for our army to get recon, because at any given time they can move 14 plus d6 and get us recon fairly easily in a time of game where the opponent may not have a lot of tools left to kill this tank. Okay, because for the first turn or two, they may well just be sitting at the back, outranging most other guns, except for like las cannons. Okay, so getting recon, that's a big use. Getting onto objectives. Okay, so I think it was it Raven Guard or one of the Marine games, I only had 1 Caladius left, and for the last 3 turns, all it did was go around the back of the board, kill his units that were holding objectives, capping the objective, going to the next objective, killing it, capping it, and just did that to like 3 different objectives. So it's really good, especially by turn 3, 4, 5, and 6, to start pushing out with them and being aggressive with them and getting objectives, getting you hold more, getting you kill more, getting you recon, all these things that are backbreaking at the end of the game when you still have a lot of models left, probably, and your opponent probably does not have that many. So, very good. The other thing that you should use, these floaty tanks that can enter combat, not die, then leave and still shoot, is you should use them to stop units from shooting. Okay, so let's say my Custodes tank is here. It's like turn 4. I'm like, okay, I want to use this thing. The only thing that can kill me now is this, battle cannon. Tank commander here. So what can we do? Well, we could just stay here and shoot it, but if we don't kill it, it's going to hit us back. What's even better and more trolly to the guard player is if you just touch the tank and then it can't shoot at all. So you move your Custodes tank up here. Okay, you shoot this guardman squad off if you like, if you need that kill more or whatever, or save them for later. Remember, you don't have to kill everything you can kill every turn. If the unit's not going to hurt you back, save it for later when you need it. Okay, and then now you declare your charge on the guardsmen. You're not going to kill them in combat, and you pile in and touch the tank. Okay, now you're thinking like an Eldar player. You just used your tank here, who will not be hurt by any of these things in combat, and next turn can just fly out and shoot again, and you've nullified his tank, which has to fall back next turn. Or not, up to him. If he doesn't fall back, then we can fall back. No big deal. So that is a great way of using your grav tanks. Okay, and you can do the same thing with the palace tank. Especially since the palace tank is easy to hide behind ruins. And then, but you can't fly over them never mind, you can't fly over them in the charge phase. But that is a great thing to do with your grav tanks, is to tie up units because they move so fast and they can generally survive Overwatch. So another thing to do is you use them to eat Overwatch. So this tactic obviously wouldn't work on something like a Fire Prism or another Custodes tank, because if you touch them, they just fall out the next turn and shoot you. So Fly Vehicles doesn't. But there's a lot of things that can hurt you that can do that you can touch and make their lives miserable. Like Tank Commanders is a great example of that. Or other units. So AdMech, say back here, instead of the Tank Commander, there's 4 robots, right? And there's like 5 Rangers up here. All you have to do to beat robots is to touch them. You don't have to kill them. And you definitely don't want to charge them. So you just come up here, you charge these guys, you touch the robot, those robots are done for the rest of the game. So it applies to anything that can't fall back and shoot, basically. So that's one good way of using your grav tanks. The other way you can use your grav tanks is to help you wrap. So let's say these guys in the middle here, let's say we only have 2 Terminators left. You can't wrap a unit with only 2 other units. You have to tri-point something. That's why it's called tri-pointing, okay? So how can you do that here? I only got 2 Terminators, and I want to wrap this Guardsman unit so that Castellan's not going to shoot me next turn. Oh, look what? Movement phase. Come up here with your dude. Don't shoot these guys, okay? Don't make that mistake. And then in your combat phase, with your shenanigans, you end up using your tank to wrap. Boom. There you go. Your tank's definitely not going to kill anybody. You'd be pretty unlucky to do that. And it helps you be that 3rd leg of the wrap. So that's another thing you can use tanks, because they move so fast. And that's one place that I made a mistake on my Ultramarines game against Francois. When I charged the intercessor line, instead of killing them all, I should have used my Custodes as part of my wrap attempt on that intercessor that was sticking out. Anyway, so you can use your Custodes like a normal model to help you tri-point something and succeed in the wrap. Okay. So that's another nice use for these grav tanks, because they're so mobile, and don't forget they can charge, right? They can charge. So Another good use for these guys is to eat Overwatch. Okay, so Overwatch, it's actually arguable whether Overwatch is better eaten by like the Aquilon versus the tank. That is definitely arguable. But what you don't want is to lose your Aquilon in Overwatch. If that's the real priority, you do the math in your head and you think, okay, will this Overwatch kill this tank? And if it's late in the game and this is what you need to do, then probably not. You can make that decision in your head depending on the math. But what you can do is use your tank to eat Overwatch. Okay, maybe the Castellan's a bad idea, a bad example, because the Castellan might kill this tank in Overwatch. Think of something else. Use that tank commander. But what you can do is you charge your tank in first. It does not die in Overwatch. And now these Terminators who don't want to eat any more casualties, there's only 3 of them left, can charge in with impunity and not eat any Overwatch. Okay, so that is a super good example of how to use these fast flying vehicles. And then next turn it just flies out and can do its own thing. You can, if you're super smart, kill 2 birds. So now you've got your tank commander here beside the Castellan. Okay, now you're like, okay, not only going to eat Overwatch, I'm also going to tie this loser up. So I'm going to eat that Overwatch, and then when I pile in, touch that tank, so now that tank is screwed too, and my Terminators come in safely. So a single tank can make huge mischief for your opponent if you use it smartly like that. Eating Overwatch, tying things up to make them fall back and they can't shoot, and then over and above, killing stuff. Russell, hey, could you talk about the problems you had playing all bikes? Yeah, sure, I'll talk about that after the Russell. These are just some examples here. So here's another example. We've got this Sentinel here. The only thing Sentinels are good for are getting wrapped. So that's what you do. This is the beginning of the game. We just started. We want to move up and not get shot by that Castellan. So this guy's going to come over here. It's going to shoot these guardsmen off. These guys are going to come up here, and then they're going to put between them, tri-point this Sentinel, and now is wrapped. So the pile-in rule, can your opponent call BS on terms of contact with your tank and his? I'm not sure what you mean by that. I mean, you measure from the hull, so if the hull's touching, then the hull's touching. If you're within an inch, you're within an inch, whether it's a base or a hull. So this is a nice way, again, of using the tank as your third point on a tri-point. Of course, if you're really lucky and your opponent's letting you, you could use all tanks. If I had grabbed that tank over there, you could just wrap this thing with all tanks. You could do that too, but and then all your tanks are safe till the next turn. So I think that probably sums up what I wanted to show you on the tabletop in terms of how to use these tanks aggressively, like Eldar Wave Serpents, basically. That's the archetype upon which these tactics are built. The Wave Serpent, the annoying Wave Serpent, always running into you, making people have to fall back and not be able to shoot them, and then doing again the same next turn if they're still alive. It can be really annoying. So that's how you control your opponents with these tanks. Okay, hope there was not too many questions about that. It's kind of advanced tactics using the grav tanks. At their very core, they are very fast-moving, decently tough gunboats, but they can be so much more, especially later in the game as you start to push them up. If your Custodes tanks are still sitting on the back line by turn 4 or 5, you're probably not using them well enough. They should probably be further forward by then. Remember, you don't have to score recon till turn 3 to get 4 points. So definitely, if you're playing more castly, you should definitely be considering moving them up by turn 3. So there you go. If you have questions about that, let me know. I'm just going to answer Russell's question. So the old days when we just had Codex, one of the stronger ways of playing Custodes was to play bikes. Shadiza, that's how you use Venom Span against guards. Exactly, Venoms are great for that. So you could fit like 17, 18 bikes with a bike captain and a Vexilla into a 2,000 point list. And while that is quite good, because probably in the Codex the bike was our best unit, It gives you very little flexibility, and as Knights came out, it's actually not hard to kill a unit of bikes. You know, a Crash Crusader is going to take out a whole bunch of bikes. Castellan took out a whole bunch of bikes. And nowadays, especially, a Repulsor is going to take out a bunch of bikes. You know, Admech will take out a bunch of bikes. Smites will take out a bunch of bikes. Magnus can take out a whole unit of bikes just himself. So, and while that you could say that about any unit, when you only have 17 models, it was okay. It wasn't okay. The other thing is, back then there was a lot more Horde. Right now the only real Horde that's popular is Orcs, maybe GSC, but GSC has even the most prominent GSC players have switched over to Marines now, and Marines just kill GSC. So I think there's really not a lot of huge amount of Hordes these days, and you don't need to spec your list to kill Hordes by running 120 bolter shots. A list like mine will easily kill 80 guardsmen easily over the course of 3 turns, and take no damage back. So I think you're not so worried about Hordes as Custodes, and so I don't think the bike list is really where it's at for that either, although 1 unit of bikes is really nice for killing chaff units. And then the big bug and the real death to the all bike list really was Knights, and bikes don't do well against Knights. You need to gangbang a Knight on the charge only with like at least 6 to 7 bikes to reliably kill it in 1 round of combat, or else you're losing a bunch of bikes in return, and then it just falls back and shoots you. So because it's pretty hard to wrap a Knight. So that was really the end of the all bike list, was Knights, and there's still a lot of Knights out there, and Chaos Knights is coming up on the scene right now. So Lord Discordance will kill a bunch of Knights, kill a bunch of bikes. So the Knights coming on the scene was really the death of the bike spam list as a really competitive build. There are too many bad matchups. The Magnus Smite matchup was bad for bikes, and so that was the end. It was too dimensional, and I thought it was still pretty good in ETC. But even then, with Knights, with 4 Knight lists being pretty much standard on most ETC teams at the time, you would have your bad matchups and get 20 0'd, so not super good. So that's kind of what happened to the all bike list, was Knights, as what happened to a lot of lists. And so I don't use most of my bikes now because I have like 20 bikes, but I do have my 5-man unit, which is a great surgical strike tool that almost always dies, but does take a lot of killing and takes a lot with it. So that's how I use my bikes, and I wouldn't get rid of them when I'm trying to figure out how to put a 3rd Caladius in. It never occurred to me to take a bike away. So there you go. And of course the biker captain has its uses. So I hope I answered your question there, Russell. Mr. Kavoshi, welcome. How effective are the Custodes as an allied detachment to a gun line? Well, we don't really talk much about soup on the Tactica, because the Tactica is really focused around playing pure Custodes. But as Carlos and a couple of the guys showed this weekend, I think you can ally. I think it's better to ally things in to a Custodes army to help them plug gaps than to ally little Custodes units into a bigger army. So in the old days, you could put in three shield captains into a guard list, and they could be little surgical tools for you. I still think smash captains were better at that, but that was something you could do. I don't think you would ally, and then of course more recently you would ally in your triple Caladius, right? But that's probably not a thing anymore. So I don't think there's really a lot in Custodes that you would just ally in a detachment of. That would be super effective, to be honest. I think it's better if you have a Custodes army and then you ally stuff in, like 3 Thunderfire cannons or a guard battalion for your CP or for bodies or things like that. So I think that's still the best way to run soup with Custodes in it, now that the Caladius is not a thing anymore. Who knows, maybe the single Caladius and the 2 Blazes coming back, but that's got a lot more points to it now, so probably not a thing anymore. I haven't seen anybody do that recently, since the nerf. Of course, they nerfed us right before Marines came out, but there you So I hope I answered your question there, Mr. Kavoshi. Shadizo, in the past 2 tournaments, I only saw one Plague Bear list. Yeah, even Jim's not running his Plague Bears anymore. I think Plague Bears just get mowed down by Marines. A unit of 10 intercessors will kill like a unit of Plague Bears easy. And then they're probably going to go up in price by a point or two in chapter approved, because that was written 6 months ago when Plague Bears were super good. So yeah, I think the day of the 60 Plague Bear lists is probably gone. They're still a great troop until they go up in price. They're still a great troop. I've been seeing cultists now back again, just so people can get their troops in but spend less points. But I think the Plague Bear days are gone, as everything has their day and everything ends eventually. So who knows? Maybe even now Iron Hands didn't do as well this weekend as they did last weekend, so maybe the Iron Hands day is already done. Who knows? But the meta is constantly changing. That's one thing you can guarantee. And so, yeah, I think the Plague Bear thing is gone. Which is too bad. Our Claydus tanks used to mulch Plague Bears. Yeah, especially when it was strength 8. It was winning on 2s. But, yeah, being 2 damage really fucks up Plague Bears. So, yeah, I hope I answered your comment there, Shadizo. So, any other questions on Custodes Tactica Part 6? So, now that we've covered all the unit tacticas, what I think we'll get on to doing next week is to talk about lists. And I think what we'll do is talk about list building in terms of list archetypes, and then go over some list examples. We'll probably just go over the 2 lists that I've been building recently, and how I built them, and what the reasoning is, and the general principles around building a pure Custodes list. So we'll do list building, basics and advanced building next time for Tactica Part 7. And then next week what we'll do is we'll also go over either the Necron game or the game against Adam on Wednesday, depending on how that turns out, which will have more learning. The Necron game had a bunch of learning, and probably the Adam's game will have learning too. So we'll see. We'll go over one of those 2 games with the overhead and everything, replaying the stream. Snoop DeVille, how are Custodes versus Iron Hands? It depends. There's various kinds of Iron Hands armies out there right now. It depends on how you build your Custodes. I think I may do better against Iron Hands now with the double blaze. But as you know, I lost pretty squarely against Cody last week. So I think it's a tough matchup because they're very hard to kill, and you don't have a lot to kill them with. You basically can't charge them. You can't charge something that has that much Overwatch on a 4-up full rerolls. That's basically like a normal shooting phase. So really hard to charge them. So I think it's a tough matchup against Iron Hands right now. But we'll see. I'm going to get Cody back for another game, or I'm going to play Francois' Iron Hands. How are we against White Scars? I haven't tried yet. Nobody around here is playing White Scars. I don't think we'll be too bad against White Scars, because they tend not to run those sorts of things that give us trouble, like repulsors and shit like that. Assault Centurions are scary, for sure, but they only kill one thing and then we'll probably wipe them, because we have the tools to wipe out Centurions. So, I don't know. It'd be fun to get a game in against White Scars. See how that goes. Let's see if I can find somebody playing White Scars. I also can't find anybody playing Salamanders right now, although Adam is painting up his Salamanders, so maybe he'll be my Salamanders guinea pig in the weeks to come. But right now I can't find anybody playing Salamanders. And Jay's retooling his Imperial Fist with the new book, so we will get him back on. Mr. Kavoshi, it did. I have 3 Guardian Squads and on Squad of Wardens. Wasn't sure what to do with them. Might just paint them up and display. Yeah, so do watch next week's episode when we talk about list archetypes. We're going to talk about battalions versus non-battalion, those kind of things. And you can decide after that what you want to do with them. I think they're nice to have, and you should paint them up because they're nice models. Shadizo, yeah, I'm turning back to my Custodes after my Venom spam list. Been getting my ass kicked in tournament games. Yeah, no comment on Venom spam. Shadizo, we may have covered this. How is the Ackless Dreadnought? Yes, we covered it when we talked about Dreadnoughts maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago, so do go back and check that episode out. Generally, I think the Dreadnoughts are not in a good place just because there's so many ways to kill them and not really a lot of ways of getting them there. If you want to commit the CP to deep strike it and then homer it in, then probably like a fisty Telemon will do you some damage. Or the Ackless, because the straight 3 damage in combat is pretty nice, but I feel like our Dreadnoughts need a bit more toughness and more attacks to really be really good. The Ackless is, even if he just sits at the back though, for 140 points, that's cheaper than a Guardian unit sitting at the back, so you could look at it that way. If you need to fill in the elite slot and you want someone to sit at the back, you could, at the worst, just have your Ackless sitting at the back for 140 points, because he's pretty cheap. So, yeah. Okay. Okay. So, we are going to be giving away these 2 books now. So, they're both shrink wrapped, brand new, just received them yesterday. These are both from Hoyt at Thunder Games and Gifts, so do check him out. Thunder Games and Gifts up in Thunder Bay. He gives CanHammer supporters an extra discount off their already discounted goods, so do check them out. And of course, they ship everywhere, so check them out, support him. He always gives us all the books that we give away on the channel are from Hoyt at Thunder Games and Gifts, so do support him out. So how this works is, I'll remind you, we haven't done a giveaway for a while. I will be asking a skill testing question, and you have to type the answer to the question. First one, type it correctly in the chat, will win it, and I'll just mail it out to you for free. That's it. I can see all 3 sources, so YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Keep in mind that there's probably more of a delay from YouTube and Facebook than Twitch showing up in the chat. So keep that in mind, but you can answer from all 3 chat sources. You're also only allowed to win 1, so if you already won 1, then don't. If you win the first one, don't answer for the second one. So if you really want one versus the other, then don't answer for the first one. It's a bit of a calculation. Okay, so it'll be Raven Guard and it will be Iron Hands. So the skill testing questions today will be fairly easy because I'm tired and can't think of any really crazy questions. So skill testing question number 1 for the Iron Hands Codex supplement. Ferrus Manus was the Primarch of the Iron Hands. Who cut off his head? Who cut off Ferrus Manus's head at the Battle of Isfahan for the Iron Hands? Boom. Answer now. It's a pretty easy question if you've read the Horus Heresy. If you haven't, you should read the Horus Heresy. It's great. I wonder when that next Siege of Terror book is coming out. I'm really looking forward to that. It seems like it's been a while. I was hoping that they would have, carried it a little bit closer together, the books. Primaris Marine Scorelock is incorrect. No. At the Battle of Isfahan 5 or 3 or whatever, who cut off Ferrus Manus' head? Who killed Ferrus Manus, basically? Because since then they've been without a Primarch, and Shadizo said his brother. That's not specific enough. And Mr. Kavoshi said Fulgrim, which is correct. So the Primarch of the Emperor's children, of course, who was a snake or something at the time, or was he a snake yet? No, he wasn't a demon prince yet. He cut off Ferrus Manus's head right in the middle of the fight, and then the Iron Hands fled like babies. So there you go. Mr. Kavoshi, you have won yourself the Codex Supplement Iron Hands. Just send me a message on Facebook or somehow, don't put it on Twitch or anything, send me a message with your name and address and telling me who you are, because your name is probably not Mr. Kavoshi. Maybe it is, I don't know. And I'll get that out to you. And the good thing about these is they're very thin and they're easy to post. They don't cost me very much to post. Okay, next one we're going to give away the Raven Guard book. All right. Hang on a second, I just need to confirm my answer before I ask you. Oh. Hang on a second. Oh yeah. Okay, here we go. So, skill testing question for the Raven Guard. What is the name of the Raven Guard home planet? What is the name of the Raven Guard home planet? The home planet of the chapter of the Raven Guard. There we go. Not too hard. Testing your skill. And Snootaville. That was fast. You got it this time. Deliverance is the name of the Raven Guard home planet. So congrats, Snoop. You won yourself the Raven Guard Codex Supplement. You know where I live, Snoop. Hit me up and I'll get it out to you. Yeah, it was easy, eh? It was easy. Okay, so that wraps it up for tonight. For the rest of this week, we've got podcast tomorrow night with me and Chris. We're going to be talking about P&P, CanHammer Team, ETC updates, and we're going to be talking about our thoughts on Marines and what we think of Marines, and we've got some interesting things to say about Marines. Not just like, it's too strong. Well thought out, developed thought processes about Marines. And then Wednesday is, of course, the game against Adam. Adam is of course, from Anvil of War Gaming, who are really nice guys nearby. They have a channel. Check it out, Anvil of War Gaming. And he's going to be bringing his AdMech that he came in, I think, 13th or 14th out of 120 people at CCBB with this year. So it should be a really good match. I'm bringing my version 2B list to go up against that. And so that should be a good game on Wednesday. Thursday's Halloween, so there will be no stream on Halloween, so everyone enjoy yourselves responsibly, eat candy responsibly, don't get diabetes. And then we'll come back with next week's schedule, try and get a couple of games in the week after. So thanks very much, guys, for watching. Thank you for supporting. Consider subscribing, follow us on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook. Consider supporting us on Patreon. And thank you very much for watching, and